I had been feeling unwell for a while, just an odd sense that something was wrong. Then, one Tuesday at work, the feeling became impossible to ignore. A searing, intense pain surged through me as I was in the bathroom, making me shout out involuntarily. It felt as though someone had thrust a burning iron into my body. My immediate thought was that I needed help, and I left work without hesitation, heading straight to Dr. Wallace, our family doctor, whom I trusted for years. Dr. Wallace examined me carefully and ran several tests. Later, he called me into his office with an unusually serious expression on his face. "Henry, I need to ask you some personal questions," he said, almost hesitantly. "These aren't easy to discuss, but I'm required to by law." His words were puzzling. Why would the law have anything to do with my medical situation? But he continued before I could ask. "Henry, you have an STD," he said quietly. "It's treatable and will go away with proper medication, but it's an STD all the same." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I struggled to process what he was saying as the term STD echoed repeatedly in my mind. How could this be? I'd never cheated on my wife, Amelia. Never once had I thought about it. And yet, I had an STD. "Henry, are you okay?" he asked, seeing the disbelief etched on my face. "No," I managed, still in shock. "How could I have an STD? I've been completely faithful to Amelia." Dr. Wallace's face softened with sympathy, but his response was firm. "Sometimes, these things happen for reasons we don't expect. I have to ask, who have your recent sexual partners been?" "My wife," I replied, my voice hollow with the realization of what this could mean. Dr. Wallace handed me a wastebasket as I bent forward, overcome by nausea. The truth hit me hard. Amelia must have given me this infection. Dr. Wallace, who had been our family doctor for over a decade, even delivering our children, looked at me with deep sorrow. "I'm so sorry, Henry. I thought that maybe, with your traveling so often, there might have been something." His voice trailed off as he noticed my reaction. "What do I do now, Doc?" I asked, trying to regain some control. "It's obvious Amelia has been unfaithful. What's the next step?" "You'll need to find out who her partners have been. And you also need to be honest with me if there's anyone else I need to know about." "There isn't," I replied with finality. "Amelia's the only one." After leaving Dr. Wallace's office, a wave of numbness washed over me. The doctor had warned me not to act rashly, knowing how emotionally volatile a revelation like this could be, but my mind was too overloaded to consider his caution. The drive home felt surreal. My thoughts were scattered, repeatedly returning to Amelia's betrayal, trying to make sense of when and why it had happened. I arrived home earlier than usual, for the first time in weeks. Amelia's car was absent, and the house was quiet. The kids were still in school, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I wanted a drink, anything to dull the edge of my emotions, but I couldn't because of the antibiotics Dr. Wallace had prescribed. So I just sat there in my favorite chair, motionless, going over the years we had spent together, wondering how and when everything had unraveled. I heard the door open, followed by Amelia's light laughter, a sound that had once comforted me but now filled me with resentment. She was with someone else. The laughter stopped abruptly as she noticed me in the living room. Her companion, a younger man, froze in the doorway, his expression like a deer caught in headlights. "Oh, Henry, you're home early." Amelia's voice held a note of surprise, but her face quickly turned pale as I glared at them. I clenched my fists, anger boiling beneath my skin. "Why don't you tell him," I said, looking directly at Amelia, "about the gift he's given you?" My voice dripped with sarcasm. She looked stunned, but her companion seemed confused. Realizing he might be unaware of her infection, I added, "You gave me an STD, Amelia. I was at the doctor today because I was in excruciating pain, and I've been entirely faithful. But apparently, that's not something you can say anymore." Amelia's expression crumbled, and she burst into tears. The man with her, evidently blindsided by this revelation, turned and left without a word. I almost pitied him for the shock he must have felt. "Please, Henry, I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. But I was done with excuses, and I told her as much. "Get out, Amelia. I said coldly. You and your lover can both get yourselves checked out for all I care. But don't expect any sympathy from me. She tried to apologize, but I couldn't stand to hear it. The anger and pain were too raw, too overwhelming. When she finally left, I was left sitting there, staring blankly at the walls, my life in ruins. In a single, horrible day, my marriage of over a decade had been shattered, leaving me questioning everything I'd ever trusted. When the kids arrived home, they found me in the same spot. They could tell something was wrong, and their concerned looks made me feel a deep shame. I had been trying so hard to be the kind of father who could teach them right from wrong, honesty, and commitment. Now, all of that felt empty. My daughter, Lauren, lingered behind after my other two children went to their rooms. Her eyes filled with worry, and I realized she was waiting for me to say something. Lauren, I struggled to find the right words, but she took a deep breath and spoke first. Dad, I should have told you this sooner. I didn't want to hurt you, but I saw Mom with someone else a while back. She could barely hold back her tears as she revealed what she had witnessed. I thought it was just a mistake, something that would never happen again. I pulled her close, comforting her as best I could. The pain of her words was sharp, but a part of me felt a strange relief. At least now, I knew I wasn't imagining things. The following days were filled with tension, sadness, and uncertainty. Amelia stayed at a friend's place, and I avoided any interaction with her beyond the necessary arrangements for the kids. My mind cycled endlessly through questions and regrets, anger and sorrow, as I tried to wrap my head around what my life had become. I spent more time with the children, attempting to keep things as normal as possible for them. But they knew, each in their own way, that the family had changed. They were hurt, confused, and searching for answers. Answers that I didn't even have myself. One evening, as we were sitting around the dinner table, my son, Jason, finally spoke up. Dad, is Mom coming back? His voice was small and uncertain, breaking my heart all over again. I looked over at Lauren, who was watching me with guarded eyes. My youngest, Chloe, seemed confused, too young to fully understand, but old enough to feel the tension. I took a deep breath. I don't know, Jason. Things are complicated right now. I was honest, knowing that they deserved the truth, even if it wasn't what any of us wanted to hear. We're going through a tough time, but I promise you, I'll always be here for you, no matter what. Lauren nodded, seeming to absorb my words with quiet understanding. Jason and Chloe, though, looked down, each processing in their own way. I wished I could say more, but there was no way to fix the pain they felt. A few days later, Amelia called, asking to meet and talk. I agreed, hoping we could at least come to an agreement about how to proceed with the separation. We met in a small cafe, away from the kids and the memories of our home. She arrived looking fragile, her eyes rimmed red from crying. I felt a surge of anger, remembering how she'd betrayed me, but I held it back, focusing instead on the practical matters. Henry, she began, her voice trembling. I know there's nothing I can say to make this right, but I'm so sorry. I was lost, lonely. I didn't mean to hurt you. I clenched my fists, trying to control my emotions. Amelia, I don't want excuses. I've been loyal to you for our entire marriage. You were my best friend, my partner, and you threw it all away. Do you understand how that feels? Tears streamed down her face, and she nodded, looking at her hands. I made a horrible mistake. I know I can't undo it, but I want to make things right, if that's even possible. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means leaving for good if that's what you want. Her words hung in the air, but they did little to soothe the bitterness and betrayal I felt. I think it's best if we separate, Amelia. I can't see a future where I'll ever trust you again. The damage is done. She nodded, seemingly prepared for this outcome, and quietly agreed to the terms of separation. We decided on a shared custody arrangement, as the kids needed both parents, despite everything. In the days that followed, Amelia moved out, taking only a few belongings and settling temporarily in a small apartment across town. The kids spent alternating weekends with her, which was difficult at first, but over time they grew used to the new arrangement. As for me, I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, hoping that each day would bring a little less pain than the last. But as much as I tried to move forward, a part of me still grappled with the emptiness left by the life I thought I knew. As the weeks turned into months, I started piecing together a new version of my life. My routine became simpler, quieter, but also strangely peaceful. My focus was now entirely on my kids, and I poured myself into being the best father I could. We found new rhythms, shared new routines, and even began making new memories, just the four of us. Lauren, in particular, grew into a strong, understanding confidant, supporting her younger siblings and even me when she sensed my sadness. She matured in ways that made me proud yet ached to witness, knowing her growth had come from a place of heartache and betrayal. One evening, as we were watching a movie, she paused it suddenly and turned to me. "Dad, have you thought about dating again? You deserve to be happy too, you know?" Her question caught me off guard. Dating was the last thing on my mind. I had spent the past few months rebuilding our lives, focusing entirely on the kids, and trying to overcome the hurt left by Amelia. The idea of dating felt foreign, even daunting. "I don't know, Lauren. It's complicated. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start." Lauren smiled with a spark of determination. "Leave it to me, Dad. I know a few people who'd be perfect for you." Over the next few days, I found myself reflecting on her words. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time for me to think about the future, even if the idea of opening my heart to someone again felt impossible. Still, her encouragement sparked a sense of curiosity, a small but growing thought that perhaps I could move forward. Then, almost as if on cue, one of my old work friends, Emma, invited me out for a casual dinner to catch up. She was someone I had always gotten along with, someone who had been a friend in tough times. I accepted the invitation, realizing that maybe a simple dinner with a familiar face could help me take that first step. When I arrived, Emma greeted me with a warm smile, and we settled into easy conversation. Talking to her felt natural, comfortable, and, for the first time in months, I found myself genuinely laughing. She was understanding, knowing the pain I had been through, and asked no probing questions about the past. She shared stories about her own life, her family, and we exchanged memories of old work colleagues and funny mishaps from previous projects. As the evening ended, I felt a sense of relief and gratitude. I'd survived the first date of sorts since my life had turned upside down, and it hadn't been as daunting as I had feared. Emma was just a friend, but the night had shown me that I could connect with others again, that maybe the possibility of a new relationship wasn't as far-fetched as it once seemed. Encouraged by this experience, I began opening up to the idea of meeting new people. Over the next few months, I went on a few casual dates, testing the waters, but nothing felt quite right. Part of me still held back, wary of the possibility of betrayal, while another part longed for the companionship I had lost. Then, one day, Lauren introduced me to someone she had been eager for me to meet. Her mentor from school, Clara. Clara was an accomplished professional, a mentor for Lauren in business, and someone whom Lauren admired deeply. From the moment we met, I could tell she was different. There was an energy and warmth to her that was both refreshing and reassuring. She was compassionate, grounded, and, like me, had endured heartbreak in the past, which had left her with her own guarded heart. We spent hours talking that first day, and something within me shifted. Here was someone who understood pain but who had moved forward with grace, someone who could meet me where I was without judgment or pretense. That evening, as I returned home, I realized that for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few weeks, Clara and I saw each other often. We took things slow, both aware of the fragility of our newfound relationship, and we shared countless conversations about life, family, dreams, and fears. With her, I felt at ease, safe in a way I hadn't thought possible after Amelia's betrayal. In the midst of all this, the kids began to notice a change in me. Lauren, always observant, would tease me playfully, "Dad, you look younger these days." Even Jason and Chloe seemed to sense the shift in our lives, and the atmosphere at home became warmer, more vibrant. I wasn't sure where things would go with Clara, but I knew that, for the first time, I was open to the possibilities. As my relationship with Clara blossomed, our lives continued to find a new balance. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, and the once persistent ache of betrayal began to fade into the background. Clara and I kept our relationship steady and deliberate, cautious not to rush into anything too quickly. The kids grew closer to her, and their natural warmth toward her was an encouraging sign that, perhaps, a new family dynamic was possible. One evening, Clara and I took the kids to a local park for a picnic. It was a simple outing, but the joy of it filled my heart. Seeing Jason, Chloe, and even Lauren, who was often reserved, laughing and playing with Clara gave me a sense of reassurance that I was on the right path. The kids saw her as a friend and ally, someone who cared about them and about me, and that evening I felt a surge of gratitude for the new life we were building together. Amelia remained in our lives, of course, but her presence became less central as time went on. The kids spent some weekends with her, and while they were still trying to reconcile their feelings about the past, they were growing and healing in their own ways. Lauren, especially, was protective of our new life and took it upon herself to ensure that no one disrupted the peace we'd found. One night, as Clara and I shared a quiet dinner after the kids had gone to bed, she brought up a topic I hadn't expected. "Henry, how would you feel if we made things more official?" she asked, her eyes soft but serious. I paused, surprised by the question, though I knew that deep down I'd been considering it, too. Our relationship had grown strong, and Clara had become an essential part of our lives. Yet, the thought of marriage, after all the pain I had gone through, was daunting. Seeing my hesitation, she smiled gently. "There's no rush, Henry. I just wanted you to know that if and when you're ready, I'm here." Her understanding eased my doubts, and over the coming weeks, I found myself seriously considering her proposal. She wasn't just someone who had come into my life by chance. She was a true partner, someone who had been by my side in moments of vulnerability and growth. Finally, I realized that if I was ever going to truly move forward, I needed to embrace this new chapter fully. One sunny autumn afternoon, with the leaves just starting to change, I gathered the kids to tell them my plans. "I want to ask Clara to marry me," I said, gauging their reactions carefully. Lauren's face lit up immediately, her supportive smile encouraging me, while Jason and Chloe shared excited glances. "You should, Dad," Jason said enthusiastically. "Clara's awesome." Chloe hugged me, her small arms wrapping around my waist, and I felt a warmth that melted any lingering doubts. This was the family we'd become, and Clara had been a significant part of our journey to healing. The proposal was simple but heartfelt, and Clara accepted with tears in her eyes. We married in a small ceremony, surrounded by family and friends, with the kids standing proudly by our side. Clara brought joy, stability, and a renewed sense of hope into our lives, transforming our house into a warm, welcoming home. As the years passed, we built a new life together. Lauren went off to college, pursuing her dreams with the same strength and resilience I had seen in her through the hardest times. Jason and Chloe grew into kind, compassionate young adults, embracing their blended family wholeheartedly. Clara became not only my wife but also a loving mother figure to the kids, and our bond grew deeper with each passing year. Amelia continued to see the kids occasionally, but she remained a distant figure, no longer the central part of their lives or mine. There were times I thought back to the years we had spent together, and I realized that, though the pain of her betrayal would always be a part of my story, it no longer defined me. I had found happiness again, rediscovered love, and built a life that was richer and more fulfilling than I had ever thought possible. Looking back, I understood that the journey had been difficult, full of moments of doubt, heartbreak, and despair. But in the end, it had led me to a place of healing, strength, and joy, a place where I had the family and love I had always dreamed of. And as I sat in our living room one evening, with Clara by my side and the kids laughing together nearby, I knew that I had finally come home. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories on the channel.